NBC's Julie Sirkin is on Capitol Hill. Former Congresswoman Donna Edwards is an MSNBC political analyst. So, Julie, Democrats say their strategy is to fill this void left by Republicans. What more can you tell us?
Well, remember how this void began. Republicans instructed their members to hold tele-town halls and not those in-person town halls after a number of them in red districts, many of them confronted by voters who voted for President Trump in November, frustrated at this sledgehammer approach that Elon Musk, someone they did not vote for, was taking to the federal government in those job cuts in the federal government, in those program cuts and potential benefit cuts that they've been floating in order to get the deficit down by what Trump said is $2 trillion. And so now Democrats say we're going to step up to the plate. We're going to go and have town halls, not only in our districts, where, by the way, they have been just overwhelmed by supporters, by members of their base, telling them to fight. It's part of the reason why we're talking about an impending shutdown to begin with, but also to go out into those Republican districts. For example, Congressman Ro Khanna of California already planned town halls. He has one next Sunday, March 23rd, that he put on, organized by progressive groups as well, held specifically in 3 districts where there are currently Republican members. Some of them even voted for Kamala Harris or President Biden the other term around, but elected the Republicans into those seats. He said that this is a chance to not only let those constituents hear from them, hear what they're missing out on from their members, from their elected members, but also try to flip the House back into Democratic control in 2026. Take a listen to a little bit of what we heard from Democrats at their retreat in Virginia. Watch.
People want to see you. They want to know you're accessible. They want you to answer questions.
It's making sure that people have an opportunity to be heard.
We're filling a void that's left open by our Republican colleagues who are too scared to show up to town halls in their own districts because they're doing things that are not popular. Even though I don't represent your district, I know you want to talk with a member of Congress, not just send a form online, not leave a voicemail. All that's really important, but you want to see someone face to face.
Now, Chris, I talked to Republican Rich Hudson just last week. He is essentially tasked with re-electing Republicans in the House in 2026, and he's the one who gave them the directive to stop holding these town halls. He's the one who said that these are outside agitators flooding to the town halls. But we know that that's just not true in many of these cases, because you do have Republicans, especially when it comes to those VA cuts, and farmers in rural communities that are really terrified of what's happening, and they can feel it, most importantly, in their pocketbooks.
Well, Congresswoman Tim Walz said there is actually danger in not filling the void. Take a listen.
If we're not out there, Donald Trump, all the podcasts, all the money will fill that void. To turn your back and not do it, it's dangerous. Dangerous.
On the other hand, Donald Trump has long set the national conversation. I don't need to tell you that, Donna, but is this Democratic strategy going to be a real answer to that, or maybe at least a start?
Well, I think that there are Democrats across the country who are elated by this strategy. I think it makes so much sense for Democrats to take the message outside of Washington and out into those districts that are really most affected. We have farmers in rural communities, federal workers who are all across the country who are impacted, students who are losing school breakfast and lunch. Veterans who are suffering at the hands of these cuts, grandmom who might be kicked out of a nursing home because of Medicaid cuts. I think it's so smart for Democrats to go out into these districts and to hear from the constituents in those districts who are not hearing from their member of Congress, Republican members who are hiding from their constituents because they know how deeply unpopular these cuts are. And I think there are Democrats cheering members on for doing this because finally Democrats are really taking the fight out into the countryside.
So the guy who's going to be going out tomorrow, Tim Walz, him visiting Iowa, Congresswoman, is sure to raise some eyebrows. And we also learned today that Pete Buttigieg will not run for Michigan Senate, and that opens up a path for a potential 2028 presidential run. We should remind folks, in 2020, he won Iowa. He tied for first in New Hampshire. He was barely known. He was a small city governor. Is he more valuable to the party as a Senate candidate than as a presidential one? What do you make of this decision?
Well, I think it's smart. I think that he was actually going to be quite vulnerable to a carpetbagger charge. He had just moved into Michigan 2 years ago. I think it's also true that he has a great national presence. Look, there's going to be a crowded Democratic field in 2028. We're already starting to see some rumblings of that from several different quarters. But all of these Democrats need to keep in mind that the first order of business is actually not 2028, it's 2026. Get that job done and then go on to the next job.
If he is really going to run, Buttigieg obviously has name recognition. He's got fundraising ability. He's proven that. He hasn't been shy about going on conservative media outlets to make Democrats' case, all reasons why he was considered, Congresswoman, a formidable Senate candidate. But I wonder if he is going to run, what you were expecting to see from him in the months ahead, because 2028 is long away in most people's minds. But if you're thinking about running for president, you can't start too soon.
Well, there's a lot of daylight between now and 2028. But I will say this, that the American people are either they're experiencing pain right now, trying to feed themselves and their families and keep their jobs, or they will be feeling that pain. And I think whether it's Pete Buttigieg or Tim Walz or Rahm Emanuel, his name has been floated to, or any of the other names that might emerge, they need to focus on what's important to the American people, and they will begin to build their case for 2028. But I would say, don't jump ahead to 2028 when you haven't done the job for 2026.